Hi guys, it's Amy, and you have found Amy Loves Crochet. Thanks so much for your time. I really do appreciate you clicking on my video today. Now today I have a follow-up video, if you will. My last video or two was about these two things, and I've done a little bit more with them, so I was going to share that with you. First of all that I was going to share is I shared about my Willow Grandeur yarn and the finger crocheting that I did. And when I was recording that video, I used up 4 of my 6 hanks, and I decided that I was going to leave the other 2 for a little while and decide what I was going to do with it later. But in hindsight, as I took one out of the hank to do the tutorial for the finger crocheting, which I'll link down below in case you missed that one, I decided that I'd have to go ahead and use the hank because I had it all set up on my Swift. So while I was there, I went ahead and used the second one as well. It may not be the most color coordinated thing in the world, but I used up the rest of this Grandeur yarn so that I don't have to rack my brain trying to decide what to do with it anymore. I've used it up, so this was a fun project. I just made a basket, and so what I was going to do first is this is the colorway that I did the tutorial in, and that one was called Eden, and it was one of my favorites. I saved my 2 favorites for last. So I just did a circle and did, a magic ring and just continued to do it in the round and just did, 1 single crochet. I think I did 8, and then I did 2 in each, and then I did 2 1 2 1 2 1, the standard increase, and then I did 1 1 and then 2, and then 1 1 3 or 1 1 1 2. And so I originally just wanted a big open mouth basket. But I made it a few too many rounds, and as I said before, this yarn is not very frog friendly, so I decided to just let it go. I tied on the remaining skein or hank that I really loved. This one was called Canyon, in case you wanted to get it. It's just so pretty. Okay, so now to the twice over variation that I did. I showed you the scarves that I made out of my Bernat pop scraps, which I'll link that one down below. So as you could see by the thumbnail, the rest of what I'm going to talk about is done with my anniversary cake scraps. This colorway was called Lollipop, and yeah, talk about scraps. I always end up with less blue than I would like for the rest of the project when it comes to my scraps. I guess I like the blues, or the blues are, just less in the yarns that I get. I don't know. So this was the first one that I made, and I did a big old band here for the brim, and in retrospect it was kind of silly because it doesn't leave you a whole lot of room for the rest of the pattern. But you can see here is the double crochet, and then the single crochet row, and then the double crochet, and then a single crochet row, and then I gathered them. So this first one was kind of cute. I mean, I like the colors. I really like the blue. It was a little bit tall here, so I knew that I needed to do some adjustments to the next one that I was going to try. But yeah, I really like the blue itself, but as far as, you don't see a whole lot of the pattern, so you're not going to necessarily know that the hat and the scarf match each other. So then here was the second one that I made, and this one is I did an extra single crochet row first down here to try to just give it some of the color and not do too much of the height, and then I was able to get more of the base color to the top. But this one is super snug and a little bit short. If you like your kind of little skull caps close and tight like that, then this works well. I love the color combinations. Actually, I do for all 3 of the hats. But so this was number 2, and I worked all 3 of these up just yesterday. I was thinking about Bunny. Thank you for your comment. Bunny commented on my scarves video that it would be nice to have a matching hat and a tutorial. So that's what I'm going to give you today, is the tutorial for a hat. And so I made up 3 that are kind of a little bit different so that you can kind of put on your own twist and see what you'd like to do as far as color changing and changing up the stitches to get different heights and things like that. So the third one is the one that I attempted to do as a slouchy, which I'm not the best at. And I really like, this is like what I did with my scarves, is giving it The color change is supposed to occur on the double crochet. And then you've got the row that's the single crochet on top of that in the same color. And then you change the color on that next double crochet row. But on the scarves, what I did was I like the square to have that bottom as well. So I started my color change on the single crochet row and then did the double crochet row in the same color so that my boxes would have a bottom. And so I only had a little bit of blue, so I really wanted to save it to be for the cap after I was done with the brim hair. And so yellow and orange is my only other color that I had. So I kind of like this one. It's like real kind of poofy and got a little space to it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the tutorial. All right, we're going to start out with a slip knot on your hook. So whatever your preferred way of doing that is. And then we are going to chain the number of stitches you want your brim to be plus 1. So I'm going to do 5 for mine, plus 1 is 6. All right, and then to start our row back, we're going to single crochet in the second from the hook and do a single crochet and in each one across. So I know on each row I'm going to have 5 single crochets. It's easier than messing with a stitch marker, but if you've got, for whatever reason, if you've got a really long beginning first row and you want to mark your stitch marker, go right ahead. Okay, so here you are with your 5 single crochets. You're going to chain 1 and turn. And now turn your work this way so that you can see your little V's up on top. This first stitch is always kind of fumbly because your working yarn is in the way. But what you want to do, I move mine with my finger like this to get down into the stitch. And I'm going to only grab that back loop. Grab your yarn and come up and do your single crochet. And then you'll see that here's that front loop still. So that's what is going to give us the ridge in the brim here. So here's your work still. You're going to go into this back loop and do a single crochet. This one here, single crochet all the way across. You can use a stitch marker, but I prefer just to count. So I know here's my 5th one. And now you can see that ridge has been formed. Here's our first little ridge. So when we get to where we need to count our brim length, I count by rows by 2, and this ridge tells me I've got 2 rows right here. So go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And then again, I move my yarn up out of the way with my finger and make sure you grab that very first stitch there, or else you'll know right away that you're off, whoops, that you're off 1 stitch. So here's 1 back loop only, single crochet, 2, back loop only, single crochet, 3, 4, and 5. And you'll see that I turn my work a little bit, chain 1 and turn, this way as I'm doing them so that I can see my stitches. Don't get so stuck in just looking at your work at the face of it like this. You've got to turn it up and look at the top sometimes. So I'll show you that again. I get my finger to move the yarn out of the way, and then I can see where that stitch has got to go. And there's my back loop only on the first stitch. Oops. There's 1, 2, oops, 3, oops, 4, and 5. Now you can see we've got, here's our ridge, so we've got the 2 sides to there, so that's 2, and here's 2. So I've done 4 rows already. I'll show you one more time. Turn it. Move your yarn out of the way, go down into that first stitch, back loop only, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Now this is how you can tell. See, if you're trying to count by the ridge, you've got an extra one over here, whether you're on the top or on the bottom of the work. You can see here's your ridge. There's one ridge, there's two ridge, and then here's a part that has no ridge. That's how you can tell this is an odd man. So we've got 2, 4, and just 5. So you'll need to come all the way up here to finish the second row on that one. And that's how we're going to finish it, with our tail on this end and our working yarn up on top here. So go ahead and continue to do this for as long as you want your brim to be, depending on if you want it to be a little slouchy. You can go a few extra than you would on a hat that's going to be a little bit more snug. But what you want to do is take this long piece and just fit it around your head to tell how tight or how snug you'd like it to be. For my slouchy, one side is about 10 and a half, 11-ish. You know, again, you've got to just measure it on your own. But that's where my length is on one side for my slouchy. And that one was done with 36 rows. And then one that's a little bit more snug, that one's only going to be about 8.5 or so. Let's see that. Almost 9. So it's up to you on how tight or how loose you want your hat to fit. So go ahead and I will meet you back when this is really long. All right, I am back with my 36 rows. So here's one of my ridges. So here's 2 rows, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, and 36. So my working yarn is up top, and my starting yarn tail is down here at the bottom. So from here, you're going to do a chain 1, turn your work, and bring that other end of the work up top. So now what you've got is the same that you've been working with all along. Here's your V of the work that you're doing. And then our starting chain, we only worked into one part of the starting chain. So you still have these 2 pieces from the first stitch, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So what we're going to do, and I played with this a couple of different ways. If you want to have, let's see, what did I do? This one is, let's see, I can't even find it. So I must have done a good job on that one. It's really hard to tell no matter which way you do it, whether you want to grab 2 loops, whether you want to grab 1 loop. The way that I preferred to do it is the front loop on this side. So you've got your chain 1. I go into just the front loop. So all along we've been working in the back loop. So now I'm just going to grab that front loop of this one. And then I did the back loop of this side. And you do a slip stitch. Oops. And then go into the front loop, the part that's facing you. So here's my stitch. I'm going to go into just this front loop and then into the back loop on this side, slip stitch. All right, here's my loop. Here's my 2 loops. Just going to grab the front, and then here I could be grabbing both loops this way, but I'm just going to grab the back loop. All right, 2 more. Front loop towards me, the back loop on the other side, front loop towards me, and the back loop on that side. Oh, get through. There we go. Okay, so now you're going to flip that inside out, and if you wouldn't like to do a single crochet row now to be your brim, you can. If you want to come back and do that later, you can. If you don't want to do a brim single crochet so that it just remains looking like this, you can. You know, it's up to you whether you want to do the same color or a different color. All right, well, I run out of yarn on the end of that round before I could get all the way around with single crochets for the brim of my hat. So I'm going to go ahead and just tie off instead. I'm not going to do a single crochet round. So I just did chain 1, and we're going to snip that and pull through. So go ahead and take your color to tie on, and anywhere that you want to find that ridge and do one to the right side of him, we're going to tie on right there. And this is, I like to tie on with a full little knot here, so that I know it's not going to come off, and I'll just sew that in later. So go into that and do a chain 1, and then we're going to do a single crochet in that same spot, and that's your first single crochet of that ridge, and then go into your next single crochet on the left side of the ridge. And I'm going over my tail to help you with having to sew stuff in later. So see, here's where I'm going to do one on the right side of the ridge, and I'm going to grab that front piece and help kind of make it look a little sturdier. You can just go into, watch, I'll show you on the next one. So here's the first one on the right side of the ridge, and then we're going to go on the left side of the ridge. So let me move my tail there. So you could go right into that. But do you see the difference of your single crochet just being so gapping like that? So that's why I like to grab this strand of the ridge when I'm doing that single crochet, and I think it just looks so much better. So go ahead and continue that. That's the right side of the ridge. So here's my left side of the ridge. Right side of the ridge, left side of the ridge. Okay, so that's how you're going to do that. Now you have a decision to make. If you'd like to do more of a skull cap, a more fitted cap, this is going to fit more snugly around your head, then you're going to do 1 for 1 as far as the rows go. So if this was 32 rows, then you're going to have 32 single crochets because you have 1 for each row. If you're going to do a slouchy hat like I did, first off, I did 36 rows on here, so it's a little bit looser anyway. But what you need to do is increase the number of single crochets you do around here in multiples of 4 if you're doing this pattern. If you want to add more multiples, which will make the hat more slouchy, grow out this way more instead of being kind of like a cone head. Like this one is shaped a little thin, like it should have a rounded look to it instead. So you need to increase the number of single crochets evenly based on what sort of pattern you want to go by. So in this case, we did the 36 rows because we're going to do another slouchy hat, but I'm going to increase randomly to get to 44 single crochets. Okay, just do some math based on what you're doing, and I will meet you when you've got all your single crochets. I'll meet you back here. So if you are following along with my count, we've got 36 rows here, and so what I did was every 4th single crochet I added an extra. I did an increase, and then I skipped one, and excuse me, and so just when you get close to the edge, make sure you do a quick count and put in an extra or take one out, whatnot, to make sure that you've got what you need across. So I've got 44 single crochets on this round, and then I'm going to join. And again, based on where you want to do color changes, you can do so at any point. I am not going to color change at all based on what yarn I have left. So color change whenever you would like. So from here, we're going to do a double crochet row first. So I'm going to do a chain 2 and then do a double crochet in the stitch next to that. So you've got 2 double crochets, and then you are going to do a chain 2, and you are going to skip 2 stitches and then do another 2 double crochets, one in each stitch next to each other. And then you're going to chain 2, and you're going to skip 2 down here, 1, 2, and then you're going to do another 2 double crochets next to each other, whoops, and continue that all the way around, and I will meet you back at the start of this round, or at the end of this round. Chain 2, skip 2, 2 double crochets, 1 in each stitch next to each other. All right, and I'll meet you back. All the way around, and you should end up with your chain 2, and then we've only got those 2 that we're going to skip, and then our chain 2 that we started with is our the end of our round that we're going to do a slip stitch to join. All right, and then you're going to do a chain 1 and a single crochet in the same stitch. Oops. There we go. And a single crochet in the next stitch, and then you're going to match up your chain 2 and a single crochet on the top of each of those double crochets. Chain 2, single crochet on top of the double crochets. Oops. There we go. Chain 2, and just like that all the way around, single crochet on top of the double crochets, and I'll meet you back. All right, and we've made it back around. We've got our 2 single crochets on top of the 2 doubles, our chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch to the first single crochet. So then, to start our next round, which is a row of double crochets based on the book, we're going to chain 2 and then double crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, jump over to the next single crochets and double crochet in those again, or not again, but that's all you're doing all the way around. Your chains match up and your double crochet rows and single crochet rows match up. So any way you want to mix and match those, if you maybe you want to do a few stripes of the single crochet instead of just one, you certainly can do that and add a little bit of difference to your own hat, So that's all I'm going to do for this round is chain 2, skip that spacing, and then do 2 double crochets next to each other all the way around, and I'll meet you back. Now before I get too far, I wanted to show you where we were based on the slouchy that I already made. So we already know it's going to be, one more pattern wide than this. And the brim is the same size. So here we are in the midst of this round, and I went up after this one, I did the single crochet and then double crochets, and you start to like here we've got 2 2 chains in between our double crochets, and then we get to a point where I go down to 1. So that you can help to start to narrowing the hat. And then in this row, we didn't do any chains at all in the yellow row. I just went straight onto the double crochets with no spaces in between, or no extra chains. So work as far on the hat as you'd like to, based on what yarn you've got and what you're working with, and I'll meet you back up here somewhere. Okay, so here I am measuring my new slouchy against the slouchy I already made. And you can see that I am a bit wider, so that'll be nice. And I've got down here double crochet rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On this 5th row, I started to decrease already the chains that I have in between down to just 1, but I haven't done that yet, so I haven't started to make this any smaller yet. So here on the single crochet round, I'm going to go through and do a here you could just follow along with me if you're at this spot. I'm going to do my chain 1 and single crochet in each of those 2, and then instead of doing my chain 2 right here, I'm just going to chain 1 and then my 2 single crochets and then chain 1, and that'll start to bring that top in. So instead of those 2 chains, you're just going to chain 1 and then do your single crochets on top of those 2. All right, one chain only on this round because we're trying to bring it in now. So I will meet you at the end of this round. All right, so here we are coming around to the end of our single crochets where we only chained one in between. I'm going to slip to join. There's my first two. I'm going to slip to join. And then this double crochet round, let's chain our two and do a double crochet in, in the next one. And then we're not going to chain any and just go right into those two single crochets. And this will bring in the hat even further up at the top there. So go ahead and do that all the way around without doing any chains. Find your two single crochets and just do one double crochet on the top of each of those. And I will meet you around. So here I've come around to the end of that row. I've got to just slip stitch into my double crochet. We're going to just do a row of single crochets on here. So chain one, single crochet in the same, single crochet in the next, one on each. No further reduction of chain stitch or count at this point. So I will meet you at the end of this row. We are at the end of our single crochet round. Go ahead and slip to join. I'm going to snip it here and then just weave in the top. So I take it and I just go underneath here. Let me see if I can come in a little bit. Come in here and then go back into this one. You can fully pull the yarn out each time, but I'm going to kind of cheat and go in and out and in and out. And you can either do that for a number of stitches like this, and it starts to pull it, cinch you all up. See how I did that? So we're going to come back in all the way. Whoops. Just like this all the way along. And it just starts to cinch that top right up. So continue doing your, weaving your top together like this. Every 5 or 6 stitches or so you can pull that tight. You can see it just comes closed. And when you get back around, we're just going to tie it off. Make sure to get that through a big part of some of the yarn so we can get it tied real good. And then just pull that tight. All right. Let's go put it on. Alrighty, there we go. I hope you like it. Hope yours fits well. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you'll try out one of these, either a scarf or a hat in this stitch, and let me know down in the comments below. Have a wonderfully blessed day, and please come back and see me again. Thank you. Bye-bye.